Our next discussion here is going to be with Louie Paynter. Louie is with Hallmark Building Supply. It's a wholesale distributor of a limited number of building materials. It was founded in 1974, has 70 associates. This is pretty close to the company that I'm associated with, Paynter Services. We were started in 1971. We have about 70 associates also. And they are located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Ours is in Brighton, Michigan. They use quality as a business strategy as a business methodology and kind of part of their culture. And so do we over at Paynter Services. Louie has a BS in education and a master's in business, and he's been with Hallmark for 30 years. We talked about mobility of management. That's the sort of thing I think Dr. Deming was talking about. Personally, he's been married for nearly 40 years and has one daughter and 3 granddaughters. I envy that because I have 6 grandkids. They're all boys. And he is now from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. To me, quality of business strategy is the best format to implement the Deming philosophy that I have found. We've been using it in our company for over 15 years, I think. And my suggestion was, if you want a format that will help you with form a successful company, listen up. Louie?
Dick, thank you. Good morning. Oh, it's different down here than it is sitting up there, I'll tell you that. We really appreciate the opportunity, the invitation to share our story. And that's what we'd like to do. We'd like to take you through a journey that we've been on for a number of years and that we continue to be on. Our approach to quality, and as Dick indicated, part of our company is heavily based on the teachings of Dr. Deming. We've had the opportunity to work with a gentleman by the name of Cliff Norman and Associates in Process Improvement. Fair to say that had we not that opportunity, we would not be where we are today as far as our journey has been, making quality part of our company and actually making it part of our culture. So I'd like to share a few things with you. I'd like to just paint a picture of who Hallmark is to start with. I'd like to share some milestones of this journey that we've been on. Our understanding of Dr. Deming's system of profound knowledge. We'd like to share some examples of how that has manifested itself in our company. And then as Dick indicated, we'll share what those 5 activities are that make up quality as a business strategy. So if somebody asks, who is Hallmark? We're a wholesale distributor. We buy product from the manufacturer, we bring it into our warehouses, and we distribute it to the marketplace. But when we talk about the way that we do that, we talk about being an integrated system of sales, marketing, and then distribution. Actually, sales and marketing is, we probably put more focus on creating demand than we do on the distribution part of things, the logistics, and we feel we do a pretty good job of that. 3 of the 4 products that we're involved with are manufactured by the DuPont company, so we have a strong relationship with DuPont. We're in the building industry, so the products we're involved with are building related. Our tagline, again to kind of paint a picture, a different brand of supplier. Brand's kind of a play on words. Most of the products that we've been involved with in our history have been branded, either trade branded, maybe consumer branded. But we want to be recognized, the Hallmark brand, as a different brand of supplier, something different, hopefully in a good way. So that's our tagline. Excuse me. We're headquartered in Milwaukee. As Dick indicated, we have locations in Minneapolis, Denver, Phoenix, Mira Loma, which is in Southern California. And as of Monday, October 1st, we open a location in Dallas. The last 4 locations are locations that we've opened in the last, since 2009. So our company has gone through some significant changes in the last few years. Just a visual, pulling inventory from one of our warehouses, as well as loading it onto a truck. Let's see, Bill said these caps work. So this journey that we've been on. This is a statement that was put together before Hallmark opened its doors. 1974, General Policy of Operations. Not going to read it, but some of the key things that were part of the vision when the company was started are as true today as they were back in 1974. So it's really given us a great foundation to do some of the things that we've done as we've gone down this journey. The gentleman pictured here is Joe Balthazar. Joe is our founder, our president, our CEO. And as we talk about the journey, the date that we put on the calendar is October of 1990. We started in 74, so we're in our 16th year of doing business. And Joe, along with our VP of Finance, VP of Operations, attend a conference, National Building Materials Distributor Conference in Washington, D.C., and they attend a seminar put on by Dr. Stephen Pierce of Texas A&M. Partway through the conference, Joe had to leave for another meeting, and that night, he met up with Bonnie and Roland, who were there with him, had dinner. He asked them, what did you guys think about the seminar that you were at and that I wasn't able to finish with? And they said, it was okay. It was okay. So they handed Joe a packet of information that they got from this session, and Joe stuck it in his briefcase, probably with a bunch of other things. And we talk at Hallmark quite a bit about things that happen, maybe for a reason, but we don't necessarily know what the reason might be. So part of our journey, a month later, pretty significant snowstorm took place. Not able to get to the office, Joe takes the opportunity to go through his stack of mail, and in this stack is this information from Texas A&M. And he started to look at it. Now, Joe views the world differently than anybody else in our organization, and he started to realize there's some pretty cool stuff in here. There's stuff here that as an organization we should be learning more about. So he gets himself registered for a week-long course at Texas A&M, and the end of November, Joe attends this course. It's a course on, as was the seminar, quality for wholesale distribution. And one of the key things that they talked about was the fact that 25 to 40% of a company's expenses are due to waste, errors, damage, whatever the case might be. And then they went on to communicate how you could take this and make improvements. You could take these expenses out of your organization. I remember getting a call, it was on a Friday night, end of the week, and it's Joe coming back from Texas A&M, and he is excited. And I think he needed somebody to talk to, frankly. So he said he's communicating that starting next week, we're going to have to learn about this. We'll get the leadership group together, and we'll start to internalize some of the things that I learned at Texas A&M. Anybody else's mouth dry?
No, we're up here.
Yeah. So we started to take a look at things a little bit differently. We started to understand that we have a system within our company. We knew some of these things, but we hadn't taken it to the level that we started to learn about it. At this point in time, my role at Hallmark was sales and marketing. So Joe and I, it would not be uncommon for us to put together a promotion to see what we could do to sell more product. Great idea. We'd get that put together. We communicate it to our customers. We may or may not have communicated to all parts of the system. So purchasing, if they're not aware of this, they can't make any adjustments. We sell a bunch of stuff and have a bunch of back orders. That's kind of where we were at that point in time. So we started to do a better job of that, started to understand that we had a system that we had to manage. We started to track measures, a Hallmark quality barometer, measures things more than just the financial. How are the customers feeling about how we're doing? What about the folks that work at Hallmark? What about the customers? So we started to bring that together. We put in place what we referred to as search for opportunities, SFOs. These were things that we had a form, and people could fill out this form to make recommendations on things that we could do to improve our system, our company. I think more than anything, it was psychological that now that everybody had not only the right, but the responsibility to look for ways to improve our company. SFOs. Some great ideas came out of that. Some we acted on, some we didn't. I remember one was the recommendation was that we put magazine racks in the restrooms. We didn't do that one. But the idea is this person knew that they had the right, if you will, to look for ways to make improvements within our organization. And this is part of our journey, getting everybody engaged versus just maybe, a group that are referred to as leaders of our organization. We started to do a better job of communicating. We started to develop a mission and vision. It was the start of our purpose. And at that point in time, people were required, I guess would be the right word, to memorize our mission and vision. Would not be out of the ordinary for a meeting to be taking place and Joe to point to whoever and say, I think we just lost some audio. Can you hear me okay? We'll keep going. Battery just died. Got her? Okay, we'll talk a little bit louder. So it wouldn't be uncommon for Joe to point to someone and expect that they would memorize and recite. Do we have a mic? Handheld? That'd probably be easier. Thank you.
There you go. Sorry.
Thanks. So this was the start of our internalizing what our purpose was. People were actually expected to memorize, have this to memory. At this point in time, we also started to use the term, as I think many companies did, that we were empowered, that people were empowered to do things. Great idea, but in our case, we didn't necessarily maybe have the structure, maybe we didn't have some of the boundaries that would have been appropriate. And again, a lot of good things took place, but we at the same time had some chaos. I remember our credit manager at that time decided that he would put together a meeting and he would meet with a software company to look at a new business software for our company from his perspective. He was empowered. Now that meeting did not take place, but again, it's just kind of our journey. As a matter of fact, April 30th of this year, we did in fact go live with a new software. Anybody here recently go live or go up on a new software? Okay, painful? It's been interesting to say the least. But that's kind of where we were at that point in time. Our leadership team was formed, so we started to bring together parts of our system, and everybody would bring things from whatever part of the system they represented. We had a director of quality at that time. We actually hired a person from the outside with some quality experience, came in, was a focal point. And again, we're just getting where quality now becomes part of our culture. It was important that someone on their door had the title Director of Quality. When Dan left our company about 6 years afterwards, we didn't rehire that position. We were at a point now in the mid-90s where quality is starting to become our culture. It's not one person's responsibility, it's our entire company's responsibility. We started to do a better job of training and education. We started to train on the history of Hallmark. Some people are relatively new with the company. Well, how did the company get to where we are in, let's say, 1995? So we started to train on that. We started to do training that wasn't role specific. We had a course, I remember, had an outside resource come in, and the difference between someone who is assertive and someone who is aggressive. And that applies to every role in our organization. We'd conduct a session at 7 in the morning, one at 10, and one at 1 in the afternoon to stay operational. But the intent was that everybody had the opportunity to learn. So over this 4-year period, we've got a basic understanding of what quality is, and we're soon to learn that we don't necessarily have the theory or the structure, and our journey had stalled. So another story. Joe attends a distributor conference, and one of the presenters talked about the things that they were doing relative to quality in their company, a company similar to Hallmark. And some really great ideas came out of that conversation, out of that presentation. That night, as Joe's heading back to his hotel room, he happens to be walking with this gentleman, and he said, you know, your presentation was really pretty good. There was a lot of good stuff there. And even though you used the word I on a very repeated basis, I got to believe you're working with somebody. And he went on to say that, yeah, we're working with a gentleman by the name of Cliff Norman with Associates in Process Improvement. And Joe got all excited until he learned that they're located in Austin, Texas, and we're headquartered in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But as it turned out, API does work in different parts of the country, so that was not an issue. Joe had our director of quality at that time, Dan, get in touch with Cliff Norman, and we set up an intent day for August of 1994. So as we look at our journey, the next major date that we put on a calendar is August of 1994 to the present. What Cliff and the folks at API brought to us were the theory that we were missing, based on Dr. Deming's system of profound knowledge, and the structure that we were also missing, which is quality as a business strategy in the 5 activities. So what I'd like to do now is share with you some of the ways that those types of things have been incorporated into our organization. System of profound knowledge, a diagram reflecting the 4 components that were discussed earlier. And we've come to understand that a system is made up of a bunch of parts, those parts all having an influence on how successful or not that the system is. And I think it's interesting if you can define maybe 10 parts to the system, for the system to perform at a high level, all 10 parts of that system have to perform at a high level. How many parts of the system does it take for the system to fail? 1. Yeah. So we started to understand the importance of the system. Any football fans here? Okay, we got some. Being from Wisconsin, you have to be a Green Bay Packer fan, right? So a couple of weeks ago, when the Packers played Seattle, we became very aware that there are many parts of a system that determine whether the system performs at a high level or not. We've gotten over it. But I don't know what kind of play this got in your part of the world, but you can jack that up a little bit in Wisconsin, I'll guarantee you. So some examples of how we have internalized this idea of Dr. Deming's system of profound knowledge. Appreciation of a system, let's start there. When our leadership team gets together, one of the things that's a standing agenda item that we do first is a tour of the system. We'll have every person a brief summary of what's going on in their part of the system. So if we're, if our VP of operations talks about things that are going on in the warehouse, it's not uncommon for someone else, maybe IT, to say, boy, I'm glad you shared that with me. That means we need to get new computers or more computers or whatever. So we started to understand that, that's one of the things that has manifested itself. As we started to learn from Cliff about profound knowledge, the 5 activities, we thought it would be a good idea to share that with some of our key channel partners, key customers. So we invited a number of key partners in to learn with us. It was the second meeting, and this group basically took it over. This group of customers basically took it over in the fact that they wanted to learn more. They didn't want this to be a one-shot deal. So we started what became our Partner Resource Council, PRC. It lasted 4 or 5 years. And we were invited by Cliff and the folks at API to present at their Southwest Quality Network meeting what we were doing relative to our PRC. There were 3 of us. I talked a little bit about what Hallmark's intent was. And then we had 2 fabricators. Most of our companies that we sell to fabricate product. We had 2 fabricators that talked about what they've learned. And they also went on to say that we have also decided that if we cooperate, that would be a good thing for the system as a whole. So we presented, and it was similar to this. We got done and a person raises their hand and said, now let me get this straight. You guys buy product from Hallmark, but your companies are not related. No, we're independent business owners. And you're also telling me that from time to time you're competitors. Yes. But you come together periodically and you will actually work on improvement efforts for the whole, if you will. Yes, that's correct. He goes, you know what? We can't even get that done in our own business from department to department. You guys are giving me some hope. So when we talk about appreciation of a system, it's not just the Hallmark system, but it's our customers and our vendors and that type of thing. Appreciation of a system, we do not pay commission. Our salespeople are paid straight salary. We don't believe that we can separate one part of our system and compensate them in a different way because they need the carrot dangling out there to do their job. We don't pay the guys in the warehouse a commission to do their job. So we don't pay commission. A little bit unique, I think, maybe from a sales perspective, but part of the reason why we don't do that. Variation. We've come to understand, it was talked a little bit before, we've come to understand that we should not be surprised that if we have a set of data points, that about half of them are going to be above average, and the other half are probably going to be below average. And we shouldn't do anything just based on one data point. A couple of weeks ago, we had some new associates at Hallmark, and we were talking about some of these ideas, talking about variation. One of the guys, I knew that he enjoyed golf. So I looked at Harry and I said, Harry, relative to variation, if you golf the same golf course time after time, do you get the same score? And his response was, all depends on if my pencil has an eraser. So I'm assuming that his pencil was pretty important. But then we went on to talk about, okay, what would be some of the reasons why your score would vary? You know, weather conditions, how often the beverage cart might come around, those types of things. But one of the things that we try to do is start to help our folks, our associates, understand this idea of variation and that we shouldn't be surprised by it. Variation can be a really good thing. Imagine, you know, that bag of popcorn you put in the microwave. Imagine if those bad boys all went off at the same time. So variation can be good. A few years ago, I was asked to participate on our church's finance committee. I don't know finance. They said we need people that maybe have a little bit of business knowledge. And so I go to the first meeting, and they're talking about weekly contributions, and that the last 5 weeks have been above average. Well, first of all, I can't look at a spreadsheet and go down the columns and paint a picture. I'm just not capable of doing that. So I can't help myself. I wonder what this stuff would look like on a control chart. I guess that's, where's Kim? Yeah, I think, you know, that's when you know you've, when you're addicted. But at any rate, so I got the data, a couple of years of data, weekly contributions, and it was so stable, you know, half above, half below. But some decisions were going to be made based on the fact that they were looking at a small amount of data, which I don't think is unusual. I didn't change anybody's mind, but at least I could participate in the conversation, because now I could, from my perspective, could see what's going on. Variation. Joe talks about his son when he was 5 years old. Walk around the house, poop. Poop, you know, and as a conscientious parent, you know, son, why are you always saying the word? And he stopped. Joe stopped. He understood that that's just common cause variation for a 5-year-old. It's not bad parenting. That's just kind of the stuff that goes on. Dick mentioned we have 3 granddaughters, so maybe our families could get together and see what we can do there. But our youngest granddaughter is 2 years old, and actually on my way over I get a phone call. She was at the hospital getting some stitches, and she's fine, I guess. But at any rate, we were with them last weekend, and everything was, if it wasn't what she wanted, it was mean. And I thought she was saying me, M-E. It wasn't. It was M-E-A-N, looking right at you, mean, and a big smile, you know. But that's what 2-year-olds do. Theory of knowledge. We understand that everybody has knowledge. We're all smart, or not, just on different topics. And one of the things that we need to do in our organization is try to draw out that subject matter knowledge as we look for ways to make improvements. So we will, if we're doing something again, maybe in the warehouse, we're going to have subject matter knowledge experts, those folks that work in the warehouse involved, but then we're going to bring in profound knowledge as well, and we find that combination will typically give us a much better result than if we were to work with just one, or just profound knowledge on its own. We need both of those to come together. We all learn differently. If we're going to train on a new process or whatever it is, we need to use multiple forms of training to get across to everyone in our organization. We need to do it more than once. We can't expect it to happen just once. Psychology. This is probably the area that we were strongest on going in, I would think, as we started to learn about profound knowledge. We do care about the folks that work at Hallmark. But psychologically, we refer to the people that work at Hallmark as associates versus employees. We believe that associates has a different connotation to it than an employee. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but we believe it does. And we expect people to come to work and be engaged and take ownership and bring their heads with them, if you will. We believe that associates is a better term for that. 1997, we divested ourselves of about 30% of our business. We made a business decision that we were going to divest ourselves of a product line, represented about 30% of our business. The business decision part of it was very easy. We knew that if we invested those resources in other products, there'd be a greater return. What happens when you downsize your company by 30%? More work, layoffs. Yeah, we had some layoffs. So it's August of 1997. We had 2 meetings going on. One with the folks that their jobs were going to no longer be part of our system by the end of the year. And then the rest of the organization that was still going to be part of Hallmark. Guess who drew the short straw? So I got a chance to share with 9 or 10 people, good people. They didn't do anything wrong, that their jobs were not going to be available come January 1st of the next year. One of the things that we did was we gave them a lot of notice. We actually gave them paid time to interview. We helped them develop resumes if they didn't have one. And as it turned out, about the middle of November, we were hiring temporary help because they'd gotten another job. And we were happy to hire temporary help because that was part of our objective in this improvement initiative. And from a company perspective, it was. But if I'm the person that somebody's telling me I'm not going to have a job in a month or two, probably not looking at it that way. Psychologically, we tried to do what we could for those folks. But more importantly was the rest of the organization that continued, because one of my best friends is sitting in the next room being told that their job is going to be terminated. How you treat that person tells me a lot about how you treat people in general and the psychological part of what makes up Hallmark. In our, another example, in our recruit and hire process, we start with a phone interview, then we do a personal interview, and maybe the most important part of our process is a social interview, where we narrow it down to maybe the last 1 or 2 folks. We actually have them get together, 3 or 4 Hallmark associates that maybe they haven't met, maybe have dinner, maybe lunch, whatever. We know in our case, and I'm guessing it's in most organizations, that when there's a termination, whether it be voluntary or involuntary, it's usually due to not being a good match in the culture more than not being able to do the work. Social interview a lot of times reinforces that, yes, this is somebody that we want to bring on board, and in some cases, ooh, this isn't going to work. It helps us out a great deal. So just some examples of things that we do at Hallmark, things, and I think the thing that's probably more telling than anything is when your son says poop, and from a personal perspective, it's become personal. You understand that there's some stuff going on here that's just common, and let's not overreact. So a number of things we have become part of who we are as individuals as well as the organization. So the next thing that I'd like to share, what we've talked a little bit about is our understanding of the theory. Now, what about this structure? Quality as a business strategy. It's made up of 5 activities. This is a chart that has been created by Associates in Process Improvement, and there's 5 activities. Whoop, wrong button. There we go. We have the purpose activity. We have looking at our system as an organization. We have obtaining information activity, planning activity, and managing improvements. And this section here refers to what we call a family of measures, looking at measures that are more than just financial. So what I'd like to do is share with you how these have manifested themselves at Hallmark. So let's start with the first activity, purpose. The purpose activity really answers the reason why we're in business. What do we bring to the marketplace? What do we bring to society that's of value? Our purpose statement, 18 pages. We don't memorize this bad boy anymore, but it's made up of a number of things. Dr. Deming's first of his 14 points, we actually include this quote in our purpose statement. It does a great job of explaining the purpose of a purpose in the first place. So we actually put this, and as we train folks, we'll bring this information up. We'll bring this slide up. Have you ever seen this before? And hopefully they will say, yeah, it's on the back page of our purpose statement, right? That's what we hope the answer is. Our purpose is broken into 3 categories. Sorry about that. There we go. Our biography, strategic, and dictionary. And these are the different components that make up our purpose statement. The biography is who we are, where we're located, what are our products, that type of typical thing. Our strategic is kind of what our plans are and how we plan to get there. One of the things I think that's a little unique is that we actually put in our purpose statement our 6 strategic objectives. This training a couple weeks ago, we hired a sales leader, and we brought this up, and he said, I don't understand why any company would put in their purpose statement their strategic objectives, then put their purpose statement on their website so that the whole world can see it. The reality is these strategic objectives, they mean a lot to us. It needs to be part of our constancy of purpose. But even for our major competitor, it's just words on a document. They would have to do something with it before it would mean anything to them. And we get that, the phone interview, I'll ask people what they might have taken away from our purpose statement. A lot of times they'll say the strategic objectives, I'm surprised you have those out there for the world to see, so to speak. We also have a dictionary, this operational definitions. Terms that we use or words that we use at Hallmark. For instance, what's the difference between a channel partner and a customer? Now it doesn't make a whole lot of difference except for the people at Hallmark. We have words in there that you won't find in the dictionary. There's a word, coachability. One of the things gentleman was asking me earlier about how we evaluate and that type of thing, annual reviews, and we don't do that. We coach on the sideline as the game is being played, but we also need the person to be coachable if we're going to do something with that and move it forward. So we have those sections in our purpose statement. How many folks here have a purpose statement or something along that line in their organizations? Most, I would guess. Okay. What makes ours any different? I think a couple of things. Certainly the content would be different. But I think one of the biggest things in our case that makes our purpose statement different is the fact that Joe owns the purpose statement, if you will. I put that in quotes, but Joe, as a business owner, has relinquished a lot of responsibilities over the years. The purpose statement ain't one of them. This is a document that he constantly is reviewing, constantly keeping it current, make sure that it is reflective of who we are as an organization. His expectation is that everybody is trained on our purpose statement. It's not just something that hangs on the wall. Everybody is trained on it. We use it to make decisions on a regular basis. Let's see. Milwaukee, another snow storm. Roads are slick. We got to the office, but the roads weren't getting any better. And our director of operations comes to Joe, actually, and he says, Joe, not sure if we should send our trucks out today. He said, the roads are pretty crappy. They're not supposed to get any better. We got customers looking for product. What do I do? Any idea what Joe's response was? Well, we did call the customer. His response was, well, what's our purpose statement say? And Ruben thought for a minute, and he knew that that was the answer he was going to get. Joe wasn't going to tell him what to do. He was going to tell him, take a look at this document. It's probably in there somewhere. So he did. He decided not to send the trucks out, and then we did, in fact, call the customers. The reason he didn't send it out is we talk about having a safe working environment for our associates. If we had sent the trucks out, this purpose statement kind of, is not what it is intended to be. Later that day, Joe and Ruben happened to pass in the hall. Well, Ruben, what did you decide to do on the trucks? I didn't send them out. Well, why is that? Well, in our purpose statement, it says about a safe working environment. Joe goes, good. So this is a document that we use on a regular basis. We use it to introduce Hallmark when we do a phone interview. So we'll send out a copy of the purpose statement, get on the phone with the candidate, and I will, did you have a chance to take a look at the purpose statement? Now, if you're interviewing somebody by phone, first impression, the answer yes or no is a big deal. The answer is yes, let's assume. Well, what did you take away from the purpose statement? What was the key idea that maybe, I don't want to get into, I don't want to get into 18 pages, but what was one of the key ideas? You ask 10 people that question, how many different answers do you get? Depends, but you could get 10 different answers. But it starts to tell us a little bit about this person. We use the purpose statement to introduce ourselves with new customers and new vendors. We'll leave the purpose statement with them. We'll point to maybe a point or two that's part of the conversation. So we use it as a form of introduction. I mentioned coaching before. When we sit down with someone, and now we're at a point where it's documented, it's a formal coaching session, we will go to the purpose statement, we will pull out the one or two or three things that are an issue, that we have a gap between what the current performance is and what the purpose statement says. And what we find is that it takes the personal thing out of this need to coach this person. Our purpose statement says this, what we're observing is this, we've got a gap. It's much more effective to refer to this document that they've been trained on than not to refer to it. It just makes that conversation so much more productive. So those are some of the things that we do relative to our purpose statement, how we've internalized it. Let's see, a week or so ago, Joe and I were talking about the purpose statement. It says it's too long, 18 pages, it's too long. So I would guess in the not too distant future, we'll have a purpose statement that will be different and not killing quite as many trees as what we are today. The second activity is the systems activity. And this is basically identifying what the system looks like, what are the processes, what are the interdependencies that are taking place, and how do these things work together toward a common purpose. It makes sense, and the 5 activities are in a sequence. It makes all the sense in the world that we have a purpose first, and then we start to define what our organization looks like. So the second activity, the systems activity, then is based on our purpose, our organization's purpose. So this is our systems view. Pretty, isn't it? What it shows are the different processes that we operate in our system. Our mission, doggone it. There we go. Our mission, our reason for being in business is here. These processes through the center that lead right to the customer are what are referred to as mainstay processes. These are things like taking orders, managing inventory, and those types of things. The reason that the customer is coming to us in the first place. The processes at the top of the diagram are referred to as driver processes. These are processes that drive the mainstay. Things like planning, things like obtaining information, working with vendors would be examples of driver processes. And at the bottom of the diagram are processes that drive the mainstay. So these would be things like IT. I'm involved in HR in our organization, so HR would be support process. These are support processes at the bottom. They support the mainstay. So again, this is a document that's constantly changing. It's a document that we take a look at on a regular basis, but going back, it doesn't tell us how we actually do anything. It shows interdependencies, it shows one process and other processes that it impacts, but it doesn't tell us the steps that we would need to take to actually do something. This is a flow diagram. This happens to be our recruit and hire process. This would be the next level down. This would be something that we could give to an associate and train that person on this and the steps that are required to do whatever the process may be. Our linkage, as we refer to it, we could actually take that linkage if we chose to. We have an error, we have a problem. We could identify a process in our linkage, or maybe multiple processes that were the result, or were the cause, I should say, of that issue. So we can use it as a scorecard if we chose to. It does show the interdependency. These lines would be from one process or group of processes to another. That shows the interdependency in our system. As a leadership, part of leadership's responsibility is to manage those links, to make sure that they're in place so that the system can act interdependently. It shows how we get work done. A lot of times I think if someone asks, well, what's your organization look like? What kind of documentation might be provided? What does your organization look like? Org chart? Sure. I think that'd be fairly typical. We have one, but we would bring out our linkage because it does a much better job of showing how we actually get work done at Hallmark. We do have a process owner, so we show that. We'll actually take some of these processes, incorporate it into a person's role statement. So those are some of the ways that we use it. I mentioned 4 new locations since 2009. For a company our size, that's a pretty big deal. That's a lot for our system to manage. One of the first steps in going to a new location would be to pull out our linkage, identify processes that we already have capacity, that we can handle this expansion, and then what are the other processes that we need to resource and add more, whatever it might be. Gives us a great opportunity we already know what it's going to look like for the most part. We just need to make sure that we've got the resources put in place to get there. When we went to Denver, 2009, there was a previous distributor, so the companies that we started to work with, they were familiar with our products. These were not new products to them. So we started to meet with some of the larger channel partners, and they would communicate issues that they might be having or problems. And what we would do is bring out our linkage, and we would be able to point to a process or a group of processes that were designed to hopefully address some of the issues that they were sharing with us. So the second activity is a systems activity, purpose, and then identifying what the system looks like. The third activity is the information activity. And this is information from API and their quality as a business strategy manual. I think the thing here that's kind of interesting, the first part of obtaining information is pretty straightforward. We're getting information. But they go on to say that the other component of this that's probably maybe more important is the relationship that is either created or the relationship that needs to be there before this type of discussion could even take place. We'll meet with channel partners, and ask them what their plans are for the next year. They will, and one of the things we want to know is how does our product fit into your total business? What % of your business is based on the products that you purchase from us? Some cases, they'll bring out spreadsheets and financial statements. In other cases, they will say, it's none of your business. And what's going on is it tells us a lot about what the relationship is. So I think this idea of relationship is extremely important. Ultimately, what we want to do is turn that information into knowledge. One of the tools that we use is our observation feedback process. This is a piece of software. Everybody's got access to it. They can capture information. It goes into our system. And at the same time, we can retrieve it based on categories that it's put in. CRM software. People using CRM, I would guess. Our CRM software provides us the opportunity to capture profile information on our customers, on the folks within their organization. The other part of it is that we're able to capture any of the contacts that are being made. So if I'm getting together with someone, I'll go into our software and see not only the contacts that I might have made over the last period of time, but anyone else in our organization. About a year ago, we started a SharePoint site, an opportunity to put information out on a associates-only website. And we've got a lot of information there. People can access it. We actually have a calendar. We've got everybody's birthday and anniversary on our calendar. So we encourage people to go out, take a look at the SharePoint site, and if nothing else, wish somebody a happy birthday. So our SharePoint site has been pretty successful. One of the things that we have on here is Joe's blog. And this was a communication that he put out a couple weeks ago. It announced our new location coming up in Dallas. He talked about the software and where we were at with the software implementation, and also the fact that he was going to be more involved in customer service, involved with our customer service team. So the third activity is this idea of information, turning information into knowledge for the entire organization. The fourth activity, planning, and I'm gonna go through this one pretty quickly. I would guess that most organizations plan in some fashion. We have learned that we need to plan to operate. What do we need to do tomorrow just to keep going? And then what do we need to do to improve? And that seems so logical and so simple, but I got to tell you, it probably took us 4 or 5 times of running the process to actually get our arms around the difference between planning to operate and the plan to improve. So we come out of there with some strategic objectives. They don't change a lot from one year to the next. The key initiatives are the things that do change from one year to the next. What are we going to do to move strategic objective number 1 forward in the next 12 months? This photo is actually a shot of an all-associates meeting, off-site weekend meeting. All associates, spouses, significant others, key customers, key vendors, sharing information about where we were going in the next year. Attending that on your own or attending it with your wife sitting next to you is a whole different deal. Giving her the opportunity to understand where our organization is going is part of how we communicate our plan, and we believe that that's a pretty important component. This is our planning process. We've got pre-planning, this idea of strategic planning, planning to operate, planning to improve, and then post-planning. And I'm going to guess that this is not that different than what a lot of your organizations do. The fifth activity is this idea of managing improvement efforts. We use a tool that's been created by Associates in Process Improvement called the Model for Improvement. It consists of 2 components, the thinking part, which has 3 questions. What are we trying to accomplish? How do we know that a change is an improvement? And then what changes could we make that would result in an improvement? The thinking part, giving us the opportunity to develop, test, and implement a change. The second part becomes the doing part, the plan, do, study, act cycle. In our case, rarely do we not take the time to answer at least the first question, depending on the complexity, depending on the impact that it's going to have on our organization. Certainly we'll determine how much documentation we need, how much planning. But as soon as it gets to be more than one person, if we're not on the same page as to what we're trying to accomplish, we're going to spend time and not get where we need to get to as effectively as we could. So answering the first question, rarely do we do that without exception. Some examples of some improvement efforts. So the first one was when we started working with Cliff 1995, he suggested we start taking a look at credit memos. Credit memos are issued because something didn't go right. There was an error, there was something. Could be on our part, could be on the customer's part, whatever the case. And we actually were able to keep diving into the data. We determined what product it was. We were actually able to determine what customer was creating the most credit memos. We were able to address that pretty directly. We found out that in fact it was their system that was creating most of the credit memos, but it gave us a place, start grabbing some of that low-hanging fruit, taking costs, if you will, out of the system, where we started, that 25 to 40% of our expenses. This is where we started. That divestiture I mentioned before was a laminate line. We're working to improve margins as we speak, working on reducing freight charges and this whole software implementation. These are some improvement efforts that are going on as we speak. Let me back up. What are we trying to accomplish? As we develop this, we refer to this as a charter. So we're going to have a description, we're going to have some expected results, and then we're going to have some boundaries. And literally our leadership team or a group could put this together, hand it off to another part of the system, and they can move that forward based on the detail that would be provided with the charter. The second question, how we know a change is improvement, how are we going to keep score? If we're going to make a change, what is it going to look like compared to where we are today? And the third question, what changes can we make? And we're all good at coming up with 27 things that we could change. We may not be so good at answering the first question, but we're really good at this one. And then we start to run plan, do, study, act cycles. Again, depending on the complexity, we'll determine how many cycles we run. So we're going to plan for what we're going to do. We're going to actually do it, then we're going to study it, and then we're going to act upon it. Acting upon it may mean that we need to run another cycle. Acting upon it may mean that we need to test it in another geography. Acting on it may mean that we're confident enough at this point that we can implement. And acting upon it may mean let's leave well enough alone and not do anything. But this tool allows us the opportunity to run that process. So, the 5 activities, we touched base on that. We talked a little bit about our journey. We talked about some of our, at least our understanding of Dr. Deming's system of profound knowledge. We talked about the 5 activities that make up quality as a business strategy. And Dick, I guess at this point in time, if there are any questions, I'll entertain questions. How much time do we have, Dick?
Well, you're between this group and lunch, so.
So there are no, yes, please.
Lunch is about 12 minutes.
Okay.
Are you the low-cost provider in the industry?
No. No. Not low cost. We hope we're the highest value. You know that's interesting because we have definitions. Our definition of loyalty. Our definition of loyalty is the absence of a better alternative. And it's kind of a dark side of looking at loyalty, but it's pretty accurate. Man, if somebody else comes in with maybe it's a lower price, maybe it's better service, whatever, we're going to lose that customer. That's just the way it is. So we constantly are staying on top and trying to make sure that we in fact are the best, the highest value. Thank you. Please. The question is, do we pay bonuses? we do pay bonuses based on the success of the company. We're in the building industry. We haven't had to worry about that for the last few years. But yeah, where we want to get to or where we want to be is we have been profitable, and then we will share a certain amount of that profitability on a percentage basis based on what the person's compensation was, assuming that we're compensating them for the value that they add to the organization. And in some cases, there might be a special cause. There might be somebody who is absolutely performing higher or not so much. Yeah, our goal is to get back to that, because that used to be kind of just kind of a given. Over the last 4 or 5 years, it certainly has not been a given. The person with the biggest smile on their face when the bonus takes place is Joe. Absolutely, because there was success that allowed for that to take place. Yep, thank you. Other questions? Please.
I think you mentioned that you don't offer incentive compensation for sales people.
Right, we don't pay commission.
Do they have sales targets or quotas that are set?
Maybe by division. Again, we just, there's so many contributing factors. It's difficult for us to say this person is responsible. Now, that being said, there certainly are numbers, but people are not measured on that. People are not compensated on that. A division certainly will have, coming out of our planning process, we want to grow the business by whatever amount, but not down to the individual person. It would be more on a divisional level. Thank you. Please.
How do you evaluate the performance of your people for development and education?
How do we develop our folks? Well, training and education is a big.
Not just that, but how do you evaluate their performance?
How do we evaluate their performance? Frankly, it's very subjective. We don't do performance reviews. We don't do an annual review. We used to. And what we found was that if you do it at the end of the year, or whenever you decide to do it, the only thing you're going to talk about are the last 30 days. The person that's sitting across the desk from the person doing the review is only interested in, for the most part, what's my compensation going to be going forward? And we just found that there's not as much value in that as paying people fairly. So compensation, we want to make compensation a non-issue. The marketplace is going to dictate, for the most part, what a person makes. There is a marketplace value for everybody's position in every company. So we let that determine a large part of that. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have special causes that are acknowledged, but we're gonna focus on coaching while the game is going on. So we do encourage people. We do want people to be talking to whoever they report to, if you will. And we want to know what their goals are. We want to know what their expectations are for the next period of time, and what training can we put in place that will help them get there. So those conversations do take place, but it's on an ongoing basis versus this annual event, if you will. Thank you.
Do you find a high degree of cooperation between your sales force?
Yeah, we really do, because we had a guy join our company from another organization, and he came out of a commission sales environment. He went into a company and sold them stuff that they did not need. That was what he had done in the past. And we coached him, and we got the product back. Yeah, there's a lot of cooperation, because we understand that what's good for, if we can make this thing work, it's good for the company and it's good for the people that work at the company. So there is a great deal of cooperation. We don't have a specific person, for instance, in sales that's responsible for an account. We have a group of folks, inside and out, that are responsible for managing the relationship with an account. Yeah, thank you. Please.
You stated that Joe is the owner of your purpose statement.
Yes.
Is he the sole author, and how does that, when there are changes, you mentioned there might be changes coming up.
Yeah.
Does he write them specifically, or how does that get?
Great question. Is Joe the sole owner of the purpose statement? I put it in quotes because he is not. He's the one that makes sure that it gets done. But Joe will come to a leadership team meeting and say, you know, guys, I was looking at the purpose statement. We had a situation that took place last week, and we don't address that in our purpose statement. What do you guys think about adding this? We've got stuff in the purpose statement that no longer is part of our system. What do you guys think about? And it is a conversation. It's not a, you know, it's a group of people. And depending on what it is, it might go throughout the whole organization to get input as we would change our purpose statement. Thank you. Please.
As your company's expanding, what difficulties are you running into regionally as far as, like, coaching employees is very difficult, especially when there's no actual goalpost for them to hit. And it can be kind of the dark side of HR things. Like, what regional conflicts and things are you kind of having to grow around as your company's expanding?
Yeah, that deals with a number of things. One of the things that we have historically done a really good job of is training a person on, I think everybody does a pretty good job in training role specific, but we've tried to educate them on profound knowledge. We've tried to train them on, and we, at a point in time not that long ago, we would have, for a salesperson, for example, they should expect to go through 4 to 6 weeks of training before they actually started their role. With the expansion, some of the issues that we're running into is we need people in the system working in their role like right now. And one of the things we need to get back to is doing a much better job. And first of all, we have to do an inventory of where people are. What's your knowledge, for example, of Dr. Deming's system of profound knowledge as one of many? And then we need to bring that to our associates. That's a, you know, as I prepared for this, there are a lot of places that I know that we need to continue and work on, and that, frankly, is one of them. And that falls under, you know, that falls under HR, and that's one of the things that, as soon as we get a little more resources available, we're going to start working on that. Yeah. Thank you. Please. Yes, please.
You mentioned the bonuses, but you didn't say who got them. Are they widely distributed?
Yeah, question is, who gets bonuses? Everybody. Everyone. Yeah, our belief is that everybody contributes to the success. Everybody is compensated, hopefully, based on their contribution. And if we've got $1 and, you know, I represent 1% of that, then my bonus would be 1% of whatever that amount would be. Yeah. So everyone outside of some, you know, we've had situations where, you know, maybe the person shouldn't even be with the company. Maybe their future should have been freed up for them. But for the most part, yes, everybody would receive a part of the company's success because they had something to do with it. Please.
Comment. I think the graphical nature of what you're doing makes it a lot easier to expand the business because it's easier to show everyone the playbook and how the game's played and how you want them to play the game. So the implementation gets a lot easier.
Yeah, our systems view has been very effective, especially over the last few years where we've expanded as quickly and as often as we have. The opportunities that you know, have presented themselves have been pretty significant. One comment, and I had a slide and I chose not to even put it up there, but a question, you know, what are the results of this journey? And I don't know if that's a question you have, but I'll ask it anyway. A lot. You know, these expansions that I mentioned since 2009, I'm not sure that we would have had those opportunities had we not started on a journey back in 1990 and certainly bumped it up when we started working with Cliff and the folks at API in '94. I think we would still be in business, but I'm not sure. You know, Joe and I talk about that. Joe, what do you think? Where do you think we'd be if we had not been on this journey for the last however many years? And then we both say, I don't even want to think about it. So it has certainly provided us the opportunity to be where we are today. And we've expanded. We're double the size in sales, in customers, in geography that we were 3 years ago in a market that has really been in the tank when it comes to building industry. So we've been very fortunate. Any other questions? Thank you.